What's going on, guys? My name is Wade with TechDaily, and in this video, we're going to be doing a full comparison between the new Samsung Galaxy A71 and the Samsung Galaxy M30S. Now, I think this is going to be a really interesting comparison because each of these devices offer certain perks and features that might sway you one way or another, depending on your needs. There are a few factors here that really differentiate these two devices, and I think it's going to depend on how you use your phone and what you value that's going to decide which one you go with. But either way you end up deciding, I think both of these devices are solid mid-range options. And if you're in the market for a new phone, I think you'll be happy with either of them. If you are interested in doing some comparison shopping of your own, or maybe you want to buy one of these phones for yourself, I'll have links to where you can find them down below at their cheapest prices from places like Amazon and B&H Photo. So check down there to make sure you don't miss out on any good deals. So first things first, let's talk about the pricing and availability of these two devices, since that's one of the first ways I think you'll want to compare them. The A71 is Samsung's newest A-series device. It came out just a couple of weeks ago now, and it's available anywhere between $400 and $450 depending on where you buy it. And I know it's kind of weird giving a price range rather than one single price, but that's just sort of what happens with these mid-range Samsung phones. So it's a good idea to shop around, look at the different unlocked and international versions, and make sure you know what you're getting, of course, and in the end, find the best deal. The M30S, which came out back in September of last year, has a bit more firm of a price. I've mostly seen it around that $300 mark. So right away, you can expect to pay around $100 to $150 less for this phone. And sure, the M30S is about 5 months old now, but realistically, that's not that big of a difference in my opinion. There's just not a whole lot that has changed in that short of a time span. Physically, like most smartphones nowadays, these two devices look pretty similar, but I think there are some noticeable differences between them that make the A51 a nicer, more modern looking device overall. Size-wise, the M30S is a 6.4-inch device, while the A71 is a 6.7-inch smartphone. So not only does the A71 offer quite a bit more screen real estate, but it does so while not increasing the physical size of the device all that much. You can see that the A71 is a bit taller by about 6 or so millimeters, and a couple millimeters wider too. But the screen to body ratio, the amount of screen you get versus the rest of the phone, is also better. The bezels all the way around the A71 are slimmer and sleeker, which allows for that bigger screen without being significantly larger. The bottom chin, I think, is where you'll see the most obvious difference. The M30S bezels are way more prominent, while Samsung really evened things out with the A71. And across the top, you also have a smaller, more modern looking Infinity O cutout for the A71, while the M30S has that older style teardrop notch. Realistically, this doesn't impact screen real estate all that much, but it might influence your opinion on the look of these two devices. Overall, not only are you getting a larger display on the A71, you're getting a design that rivals most flagships, while the M30S looks a bit dated, like I mentioned. I realize this isn't a huge deal for most people, but for some folks, what they see in front of them every single day with the bezels and the notch, that can be very important. In regards to the actual displays themselves, you might be surprised to find out that there isn't a whole lot that's different when it comes to the viewing experience. Sure, the technical specs vary because of the different screen sizes. You get a 20:9 aspect ratio on the larger A51 versus a 19.5:9 aspect ratio on the M30S, but in the end, they're both 1080p Super AMOLED panels. The resolutions vary ever so slightly because of the size difference, 1080x2400 on the A71 and 1080x2340 on the M30S, but that's not something anyone would notice. Another thing I haven't been able to notice is whether there's a major difference in the viewing experience altogether. While the A71 gets the plus distinction for its Super AMOLED panel, I haven't found any variations in color or detail when I put it side by side with the M30S. To me, the saturation and color temperature are identical, the detail is comparable, and the viewing angles and overall experience seem to be the same between these two phones. As far as I'm aware, Samsung seems to be using pretty much the same panel and technology on all of their mid-range devices. So if you were maybe hoping for a drastically different screen on the A71, something that was noticeably better, I don't think that's what you're going to get here. The major difference, like I mentioned earlier, is in the bezels and the camera cutout. Besides that, what you're actually looking at doesn't appear to be any different at all. And actually, the rest of the physical aspects of these two devices are nearly identical too. Both of these phones consist of a plastic build with a polished, hard plastic frame and a colorful, shiny backside. The A71 has that color-changing rainbow effect and some light pattern design, while the M30S is an actual two-tone gradient, but the color options here aren't too important. Everything else, from the SIM and SD card tray on the left side to the volume and power switch on the right, and even the ports and speaker underneath, they're all set up pretty much the same. I think the most interesting thing to note here is that you aren't getting a better build with the A71, and you aren't getting a worse build with the M30S. The phones don't feel cheap by any means. They have some weight to them, and they feel nice in the hand. They're great looking phones all in all, but you just have to keep in mind that they are still all plastic mid-range devices no matter which way you go. Interestingly enough though, you might have noticed a difference around back. Yes, obviously the camera setups are different, and we'll get to that, but the M30S also retains a physical rear-mounted fingerprint sensor. The A71, on the other hand, gets the in-display fingerprint reader under the front glass. Now, I've mentioned this countless times before already, but the A51 and A71, for whatever reason, haven't had the best fingerprint experience for me personally, and I really like what the M30S has, especially after some recent software updates that improved accuracy and speed. The whole fingerprint unlock thing isn't a deciding factor, obviously, but it is certainly something to consider. Now, let's talk about the important stuff that really separates these two devices. First off, the battery capacity here is vastly different. The A71 has a pretty respectable 4500 milliamp capacity battery powering it, and I have no complaints. I could make it through a day's use no problem. The M30S, on the other hand, packs a massive 6000 milliamp battery, which can power the phone through at least 2 days worth of normal use. That's really impressive. And I know a ton of people consider the huge battery to be probably the selling point for this device. The bigger battery makes the M30S a bit thicker physically as well. It's mostly noticeable when it's there in your hand and you're comparing them both side by side. It's not like an issue at all, and personally, I'd take a slightly thicker phone with a huge battery anyway versus trying to save space. The M30S, I think, is really the leader when it comes to battery life in that mid-range space, and I know for a lot of people, that's probably the most important thing to consider. On the topic of battery power, there's also a difference in charging speed capabilities as well. The M30S only supports 15 watt fast charging, while the A71 can juice up at the faster 25 watt standard, but this is sort of a tough comparison to make anyway, because the M30S does have that significantly larger capacity. It's going to take longer to charge the M30S no matter how you look at it, but you might be charging it less often anyway. Beyond the battery, the other deciding factor worth considering is the processor inside each of these devices. The M30S is powered by the respectable Samsung Exynos 9611 chipset and Mali G72 GPU. Now overall, there's nothing wrong with that. But when you see what you get with the A71, I think this phone is a bit more enticing. The A71 offers the new Snapdragon 730 processor and Adreno 618 GPU, already a decent step up. And besides that, you can get more RAM with the A71 as well, 6 or 8 gigs depending on the configuration, versus just 4 or 6 with the M30S. And on the software side of things, the A71 supports Android 10 and One UI 2 out of the box, while the M30S is still one update behind. Altogether, that means in real-world use, the A71 is almost always quicker than the M30S. Now, it's not by a whole lot. The M30S is still a really smooth device with a great user experience, but the A71 can consistently load apps faster and has a snappier experience overall. For a lot of folks, the extra quarter of a second difference, if it's even that, isn't a huge deal, but as you start to load more and more apps and push the phones harder and harder, the A71 will continue to outperform the M30S. Again, it's not by a ton, but it's noticeable and worth considering. The final factor worth considering is the camera setup that you'll find on each of these phones. Now, I have to say, I think Samsung has done an awesome job with their mid-range line of smartphone cameras. Especially on the A71, there's a lot to offer. This phone packs 4 different lenses: a 64 megapixel f1.8 aperture main shooter, a 12 megapixel ultra wide, a 5 megapixel depth sensing lens, and a brand new 5 megapixel macro camera for super close-up photography. The M30S is no slouch though. It has a 48 megapixel f2.0 main lens, an 8 megapixel ultra wide, and the same 5 megapixel depth sensor. Now, because of the better camera specs and the better processor inside powering the phone, the A71 is going to take better pictures all around. There's no denying that. You also have that bonus macro lens, which is, in my opinion, not all that useful, but maybe you might find it fun. The big thing here though is that the actual capabilities, the shooting modes, and the options and the features, they're all nearly identical across both phones. You get live focus, night mode, slow-mo, pro controls. You don't miss out on any features by going with the M30S, which is great. And you can even shoot 4K video on both, which is really impressive for mid-range devices. If pictures and videos are important to you at all, each of these phones is going to offer some great capabilities, but the A71 does come out ahead. And it's the same story with the selfie camera too. The teardrop notch hides a 16 megapixel shooter on the M30S, while the A71 has a newly upgraded 32 megapixel lens for significantly better pictures. And there's 4K video recording up front on the A71 as well, which the M30S can't do. Again, overall, the shooting modes and features are basically the same, but the overall results of the pictures and videos are going to be better on the A71. So here are my final thoughts with these two phones. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I think this is a super tough comparison to make. The M30S is a device with an insane battery capacity, really solid specs, and plenty of great features and capabilities for $300 or less. But the A71, on the other hand, even at $400 or $450, offers an incredible value overall. Personally, I think I'm leaning towards the A71 as the phone to get between these two, but that's just me. I'd love to know what you guys think, of course, so leave a comment down below and let me know which phone you'd pick, the M30S or the A71. But hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. Be sure to follow TechDaily on Twitter and subscribe to the TechDaily YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys later.